Welcome back and welcome to part 5 of this tutorial series where I'm going to show you how to create this Sci-Fi Mech robot in Blender. So in this part we are going to be modeling the lower legs and we're also going to be modeling the feet. So by the end of this part the entire modeling of the robot character will be finished. Real quick though before we start, tutorials like these are made possible thanks to my Gumroad customers and my Patreon supporters and my members on the YouTube memberships. So if you'd like to help support me on this channel, I'll have the links in the description to my Gumroad and Patreon and the YouTube memberships. And I do really appreciate all of your support. It really does help me to keep on making Blender content. Alright, so we're going to start off by creating this other joint right here, and this is going to be the joint between the upper leg and the lower legs. So we already have this object right here, and this object right here is pretty much the same shape. So I'm going to select this object right here, this joint, and then I can press 3 on the numpad for a side view. I can hold down the Z button and move over into wireframe so that we can preview this. And then real quick, let's also turn off the snapping feature. I had the snapping turned on in the other part, so make sure you turn that off. So I'm now going to press Shift D to duplicate. We're going to duplicate this object. Click and hold with your mouse wheel to constrain it to the y-axis, and I'm going to bring it over there. And then before I scale it, I'm going to tab to go into edit mode. And I'm going to double tap the A key to select everything. And then I also want to go right here to the vertex select. So I'm going to press S to scale, and I'm going to scale this entire thing down. And this one here is basically just a duplicated version of that other joint, but it is going to be smaller. So scale that down and just fit the reference. Then I can press 7 on the numpad for top view. I need to zoom out here, and you can see this one is kind of moved over here. So I'm going to press G to grab, click with your mouse wheel and constrain it to the x-axis and just stick it right there. Now with this one the shape is a little bit different, so I'm going to press B for the box select, and then I'm going to click with my middle mouse wheel and drag around this area and then let go, and that's going to deselect that area by clicking and dragging with the middle mouse button. So I can now press X to delete, and we just want to delete the vertices. So I now want to extrude this new part out, so I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just select that loop of vertices. I can press E to extrude. Let's extrude this out on the x-axis and just stick that there. So if I hold down the Z button, go back into the solid view, I can navigate over here and you can see what we've made. So I want to add a little space right here, and this little space is where the lower leg is going to be, where it's going to connect, and then we're also going to kind of extrude this out and make this little joint go all the way over here as well. So it's going to go through both of the joints and keep them connected. So for now, I'm just going to press the F key to fill a face right in there. Now I also want to add some little details along the sides here, so let's do that. So I'm going to click right here to go to the face select. So what I'm going to do is select 2 faces and then not select 2 faces and then select 2 more faces. And I'm going to do that all the way around. So I'm going to select this face, hold down the Shift key, select this face, and then Shift select these 2 faces, but we're going to leave 2 here in the gap. So Shift select those faces and then leave 2 more. And we're going to do the other ones here and then 2 more, and we're going to do these 2. And then don't select the next 2, but then select these 2 and just continue to do that all around here. Oh, we need to leave a space there for 2 of them, and then also these 2 right here. So now you can see there's 2 selected and then there's 2 that are not selected. So I now want to inset these and then I want to scale them down. So I'm going to press the I key and that is going to inset them, but then I want to press the I key again, and that way they are going to be connected to each other. You can see those 2 faces are touching. And I'm just going to bring this down and place it about there. Then I'm going to press E to extrude, and then after that I want to press S to scale, and I'm going to scale them in. And I'm just going to bring them in, make them a bit smaller, and then I don't want to scale them back and forth on the x-axis, so I'm going to press Shift X. That way it won't scale it on the x-axis, but it will scale it on the Z and Y. And I'm just going to bring that down and then place it right about there. There we go. So now it wasn't scaled on the x-axis. The x-axis is going back and forth that way. So we just scaled that down, and now that looks good. Let's tab back into object mode. So now we just have some cool little sci-fi details, and that just adds a lot to the robot. So we're now going to be adding a new object for the lower legs. So I'm going to press Shift C. Shift C will center the 3D cursor to the center of the scene. And I'm going to press Shift A, and let's go right here and add a cube. And then I want to move it back, so I'm going to press G to grab, bring it back on the Y-axis and stick it there. Then I can press Tab to go into edit mode, and I can press G to grab, and I'm going to move it over. And make sure you move it over in edit mode, because I want the origin point to be there in the center. So I can scale this down and bring it over here. And then I'm going to tab to go back to object mode, and I want to copy the modifiers just like we did for all the other objects. So make sure this object is selected, hold down the shift key, and then I'm just going to select the head last. And then I'm going to press Control L to bring up the link and transfer data, and I want to click on copy modifiers. So now this object here has copied those modifiers, and you can see it's beveled and it also has the mirror. And then using the object context menu, I can shade that smooth. All right, so I can tab to go into edit mode, and I'm going to press the period on the numpad to zoom over to the cube. So I'm going to press 3 on the numpad. That's going to go to the side view, and you can see this is going down sideways, and that would be really hard to model, modeling it down sideways. And so I'm going to rotate the reference image, and then once we were done, we can rotate the reference image back. So I'm going to press tab to go back into object mode, and then you can just select the reference. So I'm now going to press R, and R is going to rotate, and I'm just going to eyeball it. So I'm just going to rotate this over, but if you zoom in here, you can see there is that line there that's going right down in the center, and there also is the grid. So you can kind of use the grid to get it pretty close. So if you just kind of rotate this, don't move it around, just rotate it, and I'm going to get it really close. So if I zoom in there, you can see that the edge of that leg, kind of the front of the leg, is right there where that little line is. And that's looking pretty good. I just want to get it pretty close. So we can model this up and down, and that's going to be much easier to model if it's up and down. And then we can rotate this back later once we're done. So I'm going to select the cube again, and I'm going to tab to go into edit mode, and I can hold down the Z button, and I'm going to go into the wireframe view. I'll press G to grab. I'm going to bring this down, and then I can press S to scale, and let's scale that up a bit and just fit it to the reference. Now there is a piece inside here, which is like the main piece of the leg, sort of like the bone. And then there's also these pieces here, and these are like armor pieces, kind of like some metal plating, which is on top of the lower leg. So I don't want to bring this all the way over here because that is where the metal plating is going to be. So just scale it to about that size. Then I'm going to go right here to the vertex select. I'm going to deselect everything, and I can press B for the box select. I'm just going to box select the bottom vertices, and then I can bring them down on the Z axis, and I'm just going to stick them right there. Now you can see there's a little gap there, so I'm going to press A to deselect, B for the box select, just box select those vertices, and I can press G to grab. I can bring them on the Y-axis and just place that right there. All right, so that is the size that I'm going for. And then I'm going to navigate up here. I'll press B for the box select, just box select the top vertices. And I know there's a lot going on here. It is a little bit complex. So what I can actually do is tab to go to object mode, and I can select this object, and then I can press H to hide it. And if you wanted to, you could select some of these other objects and press H to hide them. So H to hide the objects, just to kind of get them out of the way. So now I can see the reference better. So I'm going to select this cube again, tab into edit mode, and just make sure the top is selected. And I can press G and Z, and I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to stick it right there. Then I can press E to extrude. Let's extrude this up and make it fit the reference right there. And then I can press S to scale, and we're going to scale this on the Y-axis and just scale that down and stick it there. And then I'm going to navigate right up here, and you can see it's very thick. So I'm going to press 7 on the numpad to go to top view. And so because this is the top view, we can't really rotate it over like we did with the side view, but we can get the correct size going back and forth here. So press the A key to select everything. I can press G to grab, click and hold and let go with your mouse wheel, constrain it to the X. We're going to stick it there. And then I can press A to deselect. I can press B for the box select, just box select those vertices. And then G to grab, click with your mouse wheel, constrain it to the X, and stick it there. So that is the width that I want. All right, so I can hold down the Z button, go back into the solid view, and then I want to click right here to go to the face select, and let's also press Control S to save the project. So I want to add a little detail here, so I'm going to click on this top face right here, and I'm going to press the I key. The I key will inset the face, and I'm going to bring it down. And then I can also scale it, so hit S to scale, and then hit Y to scale it on the y-axis and make that smaller. Then I can press E to extrude, we're going to bring that up, and then S to scale, and we're going to scale this on the y-axis, and we're going to make that a bit smaller, and then bring it down on the z-axis. All right, and then I think I want to make it a little bit thinner back and forth, so I can select the face here, hold down the shift key, select this face, and then I can scale them on the x-axis and make that a bit thinner. So just like that, maybe even select this face and bring it up a little bit. So that's looking pretty good. Let's press 3 on the numpad to go to side view, hold down the Z button, go into the wireframe, and that's pretty close. I guess I will tab into edit mode and go right back here to the vertex select. I can press B for the box select, just box select those vertices that we created there, that little thing coming up, and I can just scale this again on the y-axis and just fit it to the references a little bit better. All right, so there we go. Now it's fitting those references. Now right down here, you can see there's a little sci-fi detail kind of coming up here, so I want to add that. So I'm going to press Control R to add a loop cut. Control R, you can see there's the loop cut. I'm going to click, drag over, and then click to place that right there. Then I'm going to add another loop cut, so I'll press Control R again, click, drag over, place it there, and then you can zoom in, and if you need to, you can double tap the G key, that'll activate the edge slide, and I can just stick that right there. All right, so I can hold down the Z button, go back into the solid view, and you can see there is that face. So what I'm going to do is click right here to the face select, and I can just select that face in between those loop cuts that we added. Then I can press 3 on the numpad again for side view, and then hold down the Z button and go into the wireframe so I can see the reference. And I can press E to extrude. Let's extrude this out, place it there, and then I can scale this on the Z-axis and just push that down. All right, that is looking good. Let's navigate down here, and I'm gonna go right here to the vertex select, make sure everything is deselected, and then press B for the box select. I'm just gonna box select those vertices, and I can press E to extrude. We're gonna extrude this down. And again, because this is rotated over, we're not really able to tell how far down it is. So if you look up here, I wanna make it about this long. And also, if I press 1 on the numpad to go to front view, you can kind of see how that's looking. So I can press G and Z and just bring that down a little bit. It's not super important. I'm not worried about getting it exact, but I want to basically model something very similar to this. So right back down here again, I can press S to scale. Let's scale this on the y-axis and make that smaller and just fit it to the reference there. And then I'm going to navigate down here, hold down the Z button. Let's go back into the solid view, and I can press I again to inset this. I can bring this down, and then I can scale this on the y-axis and make that a bit smaller. Then I can press E to extrude, we can extrude that out, and then I can again scale this on the y-axis and make that a bit smaller. All right, something like that. All right, so now let's create those pieces of armor or the metal plating which is going around this object. So to do this, I can start by just copying one of these planes right here. So I'm going to press tab to go into edit mode, and then I'm going to go right here to the face select, and I can just select this face right here. Then I'm going to press shift D to duplicate it, and let's bring it out on the y-axis. And then I want to make this its own object, so I'm going to press P, and let's separate by selection. And then I can press 3 on the numpad for side view, tab to go back to object mode, just select this object, and I can't really select it on side view, so I'm just going to navigate over here, select it, and then press 3 on the numpad for side view. I can tab into edit mode, press A to select everything, and I can press G to grab, and I'm just going to stick it right here kind of in the middle. And then I can also scale this on the Z-axis and make it longer. And to see this better, I'm going to hold down the Z button, go into the wireframe. So I just want to scale this up, scale it down on the Z-axis, and I'm just making this piece long enough that it starts right up here, and then it ends right down there, connecting to the reference. So I'm now going to press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude this thing out, and I'm going to bring it all the way right here to the end of the armor. And then I can press 7 on the numpad for the top view. Now it's a little bit hard to see, so I'm going to press tab to go to object mode. I'm just going to select this object and then press H to hide it. And then let me just navigate over here. I can select this object again. This is the armor piece. tab into edit mode, and I can press 7 on the numpad for top view. So if I zoom in here, you can see this is one of the pieces, and it is slanted over because it's on top view, but I can use it to get the idea of how big it is. So I'm going to press S to scale. Let's scale this on the x-axis, and I'm going to scale it up just like that. And then I can navigate right over here, and I'm going to hold down the Z button, and go back to solid. So I now want to delete these faces here. So I'm going to select this face, press X to delete it. I want to delete the faces, also select this face, press X to delete, and let's delete the faces, and navigate right down here, select this face, and press X to delete, and we want to delete the faces. So why I'm doing that is because I want to give this a Solidify modifier to make it thick. So let's click right here and add modifier, and I'm going to go right down here under generate, and I'm going to add the Solidify modifier. And then right down here you can see here's the solidify, and I can drag the thickness value, and that's going to change the thickness of the armor. Now I want the Solidify modifier to come first because I first want it to be solid, then I want it to mirror it, and then I want it to bevel it. So I can click right here where these little dots are, and then I can drag up, and I want to put the Solidify modifier on the very top. So now it's beveling the Solidify. And then I'm going to select this face right here, and I can press 7 on the numpad for top view, hold down the Z button, go into the wireframe, and I want to scale this up a bit, so I'm going to press S to scale on the x-axis, and just bring it out like that. Press 3 on the numpad for side view, and I can see how that's looking. And if you've noticed that there's this circle piece here, which is kind of stuck inside the armor, don't worry about that, because if you press 3 on the numpad for side view and go into the wireframe, you can see it's actually going to be up here, but we just rotated the reference over. So I just want to focus on the armor piece, which is back there. And to make this easier, I'm going to tab to go to object mode, just select this object, and then press H to hide it. And we can also just hide any of these other objects which are in the way. So now we can just focus on this object here. So select the armor piece, and I'm going to tab to go back into edit mode. Now I do want to make this armor a little bit less thick. So on this thickness value, I'm going to drag this back a little bit so it's not as thick. And then I also want to click on this even thickness button. So this even thickness button is going to make sure that all of these areas here are the same thickness. You can see this is a little bit thinner than this part right here. So if you check mark the even thickness, it's going to be the same thickness. And then I can press 3 on the numpad for side view again. And I want to bring this over so it fits the reference. So I can press G to grab, and let's bring this over on the Y-axis and just stick it right there. And this is going out a little bit too far. So I'm going to go right here to go to the edge select, and then I'm going to press A to deselect, B for the box select. We're just going to box select those edges there, so make sure both of those edges are selected, and then I'll press 3 for side view. I can press G to grab and bring this back on the Y-axis and just align that up, so stick it right there. And then again, if you need to, you can change the thickness value, so you can see that it's going to start there, and then the thickness value is going to end there. So this is kind of a good gauge to see how thick you want it to be. So change the thickness value so that the thickness starts here and then ends right there. Or you can just eyeball it and just get the thickness value to something like this, something that looks good, kind of like that. Right, so on this armor, I want to cut out a little area here and also cut out an area down here. So to do this, I'm going to tab to go into edit mode, and I'm going to press Ctrl R to add a loop cut, left click and right click so it stays in the center, and then right here Control R, left click and right click so it stays in the center. And then I can hold down the Alt and Shift key and select that loop so both of those loops are selected. And I can press 3 on the numpad for side view, hold down the Z button, and go into the wireframe. So I want to match this up with the reference with that flat part right there. So I'm going to double tap the G key, and that'll activate the edge slide, and we can slide these edges down, and I'm going to stick it right there. So now you can see what that's doing, so it's sliding that edge down. Alright, so I can now press 3 on the numpad again for side view, and I want to add some cuts right here and also right down here, and then we'll scale that area in. So I'm going to press Ctrl R to add a loop cut, and we want to place it there, so click and then drag all the way up, and we're going to stick it right there. So if I zoom in there, you can see it's going right there on the reference. And then right down here, Ctrl R to add a loop cut, and then click, we're going to drag down, and then click to place it there. Alright, so I can now press A to deselect, I can press B for the box select, and I'm just going to box select those vertices, and then I can scale them with S, and I want to scale them on the Z axis, and I'm going to push that down there just to fit the reference. Alright, so I can now delete these extra faces here and here, so I'll press A to deselect, I can press B for the box select, just box select those vertices, and B again for the box select, and just select those vertices. I can hold down the Z button and go back into solid view, and I want to now just delete those vertices on the edges, so I can press X to delete, and we can just delete the vertices. So now you can see we have that really cool sci-fi shape there for the armor. And then if I press 3 on the numpad for front view, go into the wireframe, you can see we have some more armor right over here, and so I want to duplicate this armor and just kind of move it over. So I'm going to press A to select everything, I'll press Shift D to duplicate, click and drag with your mouse wheel, bring it over on the Y-axis, and then I can press 7 on the numpad for top view. So I now just want to rotate it all the way around, so I'm going to press R to rotate. We can type in 180 and then enter to rotate it over by 180 degrees. Then I can press 3 on the numpad for side view again. I can press G to grab, and we're going to bring this right down there, and we're going to stick this right down there. So you can see that is matching up with that reference. And then we don't need these extra vertices here, so deselect everything, press B for the box select, just box select those vertices. I can press X to delete, and we can delete the vertices. And then you can see this comes up way too far, and it's actually going through the other piece of armor. So back in wireframe, I'm going to press B for the box select. I'm just going to box select all of these vertices, so the top one's up here, and then I can press G to grab. Let's bring this down on the Z axis and just fit that armor right there. All right, A to deselect. Let's press B for the box select again, just box select those vertices, and I can press G and Z, and we're going to bring that up and fit it right there. All right, let's press Control S again to save. So if I go back here into solid view, you can kind of see what we've created. Now I also want to add some bevels on the side of the armor. If I press 3 on the numpad to go to side view and go over into wireframe, you can see there is some bevels there and like some other ones right over there. So I'm going to deselect everything, and then I'm just going to select the vertices, which are where the bevel is. So I'm going to press B for the box select, just box select those vertices, and we're doing this in wireframe so that I can select both sides. So back to side view, I'm going to navigate right up here, press B for the box select, we can just box select those vertices, and then right up here, B for the box select and select those vertices. So if I normally just press Control B, you can see it's not going to work, and that's just because it's one vertex. So I'm going to press Control Z to undo that. I'm going to instead press Control Shift B. So Control Shift B is now going to bevel that, and I can just bring it down, make it fit the reference, and then place it there. So that is looking good. Now it fits the reference. That one does as well, and also that one as well. So now it has that cool kind of sci-fi bevel on the side there. So we now have some really nice armor around that leg. Now if I look at this on top view, you can see that the armor is actually floating, and so I want to extrude out kind of a beam to fit the armor. So I'm going to press Tab to go to object mode, and I'm going to select this object here, and I can press Tab to go back to edit mode. So I want to add some loop cuts here, so I'm going to press 3 on the numpad for side view, hold down the Z button, go into the wireframe, and I can press Control R to add a loop cut. Let's click and drag and drop a loop cut maybe about there, and then Control R, let's add another loop cut here, and I can bring this one about there. And the amount of space in between these two loop cuts should be about the same as these two, so you can just get that pretty close. Hold down the Z button, go back into the solid view, and I'm going to navigate up here. I'm going to go right here to the face select, and I just want to select those faces. So it might be easier to actually do this in wireframe. So hold down the Z button, go into the wireframe, and what I want to do is select that face there, and then hold down the Shift key and select that face there. All right, so I can press 3 for side view, and I want to extrude these out to kind of make some metal beams which are going into the armor. So I can press E to extrude. We're just going to bring that back and place it there. All right, so if you go back into solid view, you can see we now have those little pieces which are going into the armor. And then I want to do that for one more over here. So if you look right in here, you can select that face, or you can do this in wireframe and select that face, which is in between those loop cuts that we added. Again, you can press 3 on the numpad for side view, and I can press E to extrude. We're going to extrude that out and stick it right there. All right, go back to solid view, and that's looking very good. Now I do also want to add a little bit more support for that armor, because this armor comes out quite a bit over here, and so I want to add a cube going back and forth to kind of hold that armor in place. So what I'm going to do is just select this face right up here, so this top face. I can press Shift D to duplicate. Let's first bring it up on the Z axis, and then I can scale it. So press S to scale, and let's scale this on the Y axis and make it just about the shape of a cube. Alright, so I can now press 1 for front view. I'm going to navigate down here, then I'll press G to grab, and we're going to bring that down. Hold down the Z button, and we're going to go into the wireframe, and then I want to press R to rotate. Let's hit 9, 0, and then enter to rotate it over by 90 degrees. And I'm also going to press 7 on the numpad for top view. I'm going to bring this over here. So I'm going to stick this right here. You can see here is the armor. I'm going to scale this up a little bit and stick it right here inside the armor. So I can now press E to extrude. We're going to extrude this all the way out to the other side, place it there. So if I go back into solid view, you can see what that's doing. So it's just a little cube, which is kind of supporting that armor. And you can also press the L key with your mouse hovered over the object to select the entire thing. And I'm going to bring it up on the Z axis a little bit. So I'm now going to press 3 for side view again, and let's go back into the wireframe, and I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate. Let's bring this down on the Z axis and stick it there. And then I can press Shift D again to duplicate, and we're going to stick another one right there. So zoom in there and just stick it there on the edge of the armor. Let's go back into the solid view, see how that's looking. So you can see it's actually a bit too big, so I can just scale the whole thing down, and it will be a bit better if it's a bit smaller as well, because there's not quite as much space here. So stick it right about there. Alright, so I now want to do the same thing, but on this armor over here. So let's press 3 on the numpad for side view, and we're going to go into wireframe. So I can press Shift D to duplicate, click with your mouse wheel, bring it over on the Y axis, and just bring that about there. Go back to solid view, make sure that's going through. So I need to scale this one up a bit, just kind of scale that into the armor. Then I can press 3 again for side view. Let's go into wireframe, and for this one I could just add like one in the center because it's much smaller. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate. Let's stick that there. Again, hold down the Z button, go back into the solid view, and you can see if I look down here I need to scale that up again to kind of match it and fit it into the armor. And then again 3 for side view, hold down the Z button, go into wireframe, and I can press Shift D to duplicate. And we're going to bring one more up and kind of stick it right there, and then also scale it down. And then navigate over here, go into the solid view, and I want to scale this down a little bit so there's a bit more space. And then I can also scale it on the X-axis and stick it into the armor. Alright, go back into object mode. So you can see now we just have some little beams here, like some metal beams, which are connecting the armor to the leg. Let's press Ctrl S to save. So make sure you are back in object mode, and I'm going to press Alt H, and Alt H is going to unhide everything. And then I want to add those little bolts all around those lower legs as well. So I'm going to select this object right here. I'll press Tab to go into edit mode, press the A key to make sure everything is deselected, and then I just want to duplicate this piece here and make it a separate object, and then we can join it to the other object. So I'm going to press the L key to select the linked vertices. I can press Shift D to duplicate, stick this there, and then to separate it, I can press P to separate, and I want to click selection. I can tab to go back to object mode. I'm just going to select the new object that we've separated, hold down the Shift key, and then select this other object here. And then I can press Ctrl J, and that's going to join them together. So if I tab into edit mode, you can see they are one object. So then hover your mouse over the bolt, and I can press the L key that will select the linked vertices. And then just like the other objects, I want to use the snapping feature to snap it onto the faces. So to do this, you can click right here on this snapping feature. So I can now press G to grab, and we're going to put one there, and then Shift D to duplicate. I can click with my mouse wheel to constrain it to the Y-axis and put one there. And then let's add a few more. So one more over here. So Shift D to duplicate, put one there. And then also over here, Shift D to duplicate. We can stick another one there. And let's do the same thing for the bottom here. So I'm going to navigate all the way down here. And then I can press Shift D to duplicate, stick it there. Shift D to duplicate, stick that there, and then I'll navigate to the back here and press Shift D to duplicate, and we're just going to put some more right there. Now I do want to add some bigger bolts or some bigger screws on the armor, but I want to manually place them and I want them to be bigger. So I'm going to press Shift-D to duplicate. We're going to stick this right there. And then I'm just going to turn off the snapping feature because I want to manually place this. So I'm going to press S to scale. Let's scale this up, and I'm going to make this quite a bit bigger. If I press 3 on the numpad for side view and go into the wireframe view, I can zoom in there and you can see that's the size that I want to make it. So you can just scale that up and make it fit the reference. Alright, hold down the Z button, go back to the solid view, and I can press the period on the numpad. That'll zoom me over to that bolt. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, so I'm going to have it come out a bit. Alright, and then I can press 7 on the numpad for top view, hold down the Z button, we can go into wireframe, and I do want that to be rotated so that it fits the rotation of the armor. So put it right about there. Alright, go back into the solid view, and I think I do want to scale the bolt down a little bit. I don't want it to be too big. So I now want to duplicate these bolts and put them on all the edges of the armor. Although there is just one thing I want to do before I continue with that. I do think the armor could be a little bit thinner because it does just seem a little bit thick. So I'm going to press Tab to go to object mode, and I'm just going to select this armor piece. And then right here on the Solidify Modifier, on the modifier properties, I'm just going to hold down the Shift key and then drag the thickness value, and I'm going to make it just a little bit thinner. So I think something like that looks a bit better. Alright, select this object again. I can tab to go into edit mode and press G to grab and just kind of stick this right there. Alright, so I now want to kind of duplicate it and bring it up. So I'm going to press Shift-D to duplicate. Let's bring this up on the Z axis and I'm going to stick that right there. And then let's go right back down here and hit the L key with your mouse hovered over that bolt. That'll select the entire bolt. And I want to bring it over to the other side. So let's press 7 for top view. And I want to duplicate the bolt and stick it over there. So I'll press Shift-D to duplicate. Click with your mouse wheel, bring it over on the x-axis, and then I want to rotate it. So we're going to rotate that all the way around and just match it to the armor and maybe bring it in just a little bit. Alright, hold down the Z button and go back to the solid view, and that's looking good. So I want to add 2 more bolts here and here, and then also 2 more bolts there. So I'm going to press Shift-D to duplicate. Click with your mouse wheel to constrain it to the y-axis. We're going to bring that there. Press 7 on the numpad for top view. 7 on the numpad for top view, and hold down the Z button and go into the wireframe. And I'm going to rotate this over a bit and then just kind of bring that over and place that there. And then I also want to press 3 on the numpad for side view, and I want to press A to deselect everything. And I want to bring all of these bolts down a little bit, so I'll press G to grab and bring them down a little bit. Alright, and then navigate up here. You can see this bolt actually needs to be right up here. So press A to deselect, B for the box select, just box select the bolt, G to grab. We're going to bring this up on the Z-axis and just stick it there. Alright, and then again, go back down here, hover your mouse over this bolt and press L. That's going to select the linked vertices, and I can press 7 on the numpad for top view. So I can press Shift-D to duplicate, click with your mouse wheel, bring it over on the x-axis, place it there, and then I can press R to rotate, and I'm going to rotate this all the way around, rotate it there, and bring it over. Alright, I can go back to solid view, and I can kind of look over there, and I can tab to go back to object mode, and you can now see we have like some bolts there, and there also, and right up there, and on the other side we have them at the same areas. Now I also want to add some little metal plates right here on the back of the armor. So I'm going to select the armor again, and I'm going to tab to go into edit mode. And then if I navigate up here, the actual geometry is inside, and that's because of the solidify. So I'm just going to select that right there, and then I'm going to press Shift-D to duplicate, and I'm going to bring it over on the y-axis. And then I want to scale it down, so S to scale, G to grab. Let's bring it on the y-axis, and we're going to stick it right there in the armor. And I can press 3 on the numpad to go to side view, hold down the Z button, go to wireframe. I can kind of bring that down, kind of bring it into the center there, and then I want to scale it, so hit S to scale. Let's scale this up on the Z axis, and I'm going to scale it up and move it over and just stick it right there. So you can see there is the little metal piece, so just kind of match it up pretty close to that. And then I want to have one more down here and also another one over here. So I'm going to press Shift-D to duplicate. Let's bring it down on the Z axis and stick that there. And then also Shift-D to duplicate. Let's bring this one over on the Y axis and just stick that down there. All right, hold down the Z button, go back to the solid view. That's looking pretty good. I might just want to bring that one in just a little bit, and that is looking good as well. Now I do think these metal pieces could be a little bit wider, so I'm going to hold down the Z button, go back into wireframe, and I can just hold down the shift key and select that face right there. Let's navigate down here, hold down the shift key and select that face. And then I can press 1 on the numpad to go to front view, and I'm just going to scale it, so hit S to scale, and I can scale it on the X-axis and just make it a bit longer. All right, just like that, that is much better, so it's a little bit longer now. Let's tab to go back to object mode. All right, so those armor pieces are now finished. So I'm going to press Alt-H, and Alt-H is going to unhide all of those objects that we hid. And then if I press 3 on the numpad for side view, you can see this reference image was rotated over. So just select the reference image. So to rotate this over exactly back straight, I'm going to press the N key to open up the side panel, and I'm going to click right over here on Item. So you can see there is the transform, there is the location, rotation, and scale of the reference. And you can see we rotated this. If I press R to rotate, we rotated it on the Y-axis. And so it says -33. So I'm going to click on this Y value, and I can just type in 0 and then enter. And that way it's going to be rotated back. And I can press N to close the side panel. So let's press Ctrl S to save. So I want to select this object right here, hold down the shift key and select this object right here. And then I just want to rotate the object over and just kind of fit it to the reference. So I'm going to hold down the Z button and go into the wireframe. And then I can press R to rotate, kind of rotate that over, and G to grab. And we're just going to fit that right there into the reference. And there we go. You can see it actually is fitting quite well because we modeled that to about the same size. It is very slightly off, but I don't really mind if it's very slightly off. Just try to get it close. You can also scale it if you need to, if you want to make the whole thing a little bit bigger, but I'm just going to bring that in and stick it right there. All right, go back into the solid view and let's look around, and that is looking good. Let's press 7 on the numpad for top view, hold down the Z button, go into wireframe, make sure that looks good from the top. You can kind of move it over if you need to. You can also press 1 on the numpad for front view and just make sure that is about in the center. Let's go back to the solid view. So if I zoom in here, you can see that there is this joint object right here. And so I want to add more geometry to the joint object. I want to make it kind of come through here, have a little piece sticking out there, and then kind of have it come over to the other side. And that way there's basically going to be like a hinge or a joint here, and then the upper leg can rotate from the lower leg, or the lower leg can rotate from the upper leg. So I'm going to select this object right here, and I'm going to press the tab key to go into edit mode. And I can press 7 on the numpad for top view. I'm going to hold down the Z button and go into the wireframe, and I can just press the A key a few times to make sure it's all selected. Now if I zoom in here, you can see it is overlapping a little bit. If I go back to solid view, you can see it is overlapping, especially right there. So I'm going to press G to grab. Let's bring this over. So click with your mouse, constrain it to the axis, the X-axis, and I want to stick it right there and just bring it really close up. So just like that. It's okay if there's a tiny little bit of a gap though. All right, so that is looking better. So this is where it's going to rotate. Now, right now, this circular gear piece isn't going through the other pieces. And so I want to hold down the Z button, go into the wireframe, and then I'm just going to select this face right here. And it is kind of hard to select in the wireframe, so I'm actually going to go back to solid view. And if you zoom in there, I'm going to select that face right there. So it's the inner face. And I can press Control 1. Control 1 is going to go to the back view. So I'm going to hold down the Z button, go into the wireframe, and I want to make this smaller. So I'm going to press I, and I is going to inset this, and I want to make it quite a bit smaller. And I can also press 3 on the numpad for side view, and I want to scale this down, and I want to scale it down kind of about that size, so that smaller circle there. Maybe even just a little bit smaller. So I can now press Control 1. Control 1 is going to go to the back view, and I can go back to solid view. So I want to extrude this out and then make a little gap right in here where the hinge is between those two objects. So I'm going to press E to extrude. Let's extrude this out and bring it out, and you can see it just came through that piece right there. So it just came through the lower leg piece. I can press G to grab, bring it over on the X-axis and stick it there. And then I want to press E to extrude, and we're going to extrude this out, and we're going to stick that right there. All right, so now what I want to do is press E to extrude again. We're going to extrude this all the way over through the upper leg, and we're going to stick it right there. But I want to bring it back, so bring it back so it's just right there on the edge, so kind of like that. So you should just be able to see a little bit behind the robot's leg. So I now want to press E to extrude, and then S to scale. We're going to scale that up and make it a bit bigger. And I can also press 3 to go to side view, hold down the Z button, go into wireframe, and I want to scale this up so it's about that big. So scale it up like that. All right, period on the numpad just to zoom over to it. Hold down the Z button, go back into the solid view, and I just want to give it some thickness now. So I'm going to press E to extrude and just give it some thickness and place that there. Maybe bring it out just a little bit farther. And then I want to inset this and just add a little detail in here. So I'm going to press I to inset. We're going to inset that, make it smaller, and then E to extrude, and I'm going to bring that back and stick that there. All right, so that's good. So we now have kind of that entire hinge. So if you hold down the Z button, go to wireframe, you can see what we've created. So there's the lower leg and the upper leg, and they're going through that hinge. Now right here in the center, I do want to add a little metal plate, kind of a little metal disc in the center there. So let's go back to solid view, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just select that loop of vertices, because if you go to the wireframe view, you can see that we extruded that out and then extruded it. So there's basically two loops there. So I can hold down the Z button, go back to the solid view, and I want to press Control 1, Control numpad 1. That's going to take me to the back view. So I now just want to extrude this out. So I'm going to press E to extrude and then S to scale because I want to scale it out, but then I don't want to scale it on the X-axis. So I'm going to press Shift X. This way it's going to scale it up on the Z and the Y, but it's not going to scale it back and forth on the X. And I'm going to make it a bit bigger and place it there. And if you press 7 on the numpad for top view and hold down the Z button and go into wireframe, you can actually see how big that is in the reference. So there it is. So if you want to scale it out even more, you can press S again to scale. And then again, we don't want to scale it back and forth on the X-axis. So press Shift X, and that way it won't scale it on the X-axis. I'm going to make that a bit bigger and place it there. All right, go back to solid view and you can see what we've made. So now there's basically just a little disc there in that rotation. You can tab to go back to object mode. You can see there's the object that we've created. All right, and so that now that fits the hinge. All right, and that is it for the upper legs and the lower legs. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to make basically an ankle, and then we're also going to make a foot. So for that ankle joint right here, I'm going to be using this object because this object is very similar to what I want to create. And then we can just kind of change it. So I'm going to press 3 on the numpad to go to side view, hold down the Z button, go into the wireframe, and with this object selected in object mode, I can press Shift D to duplicate. We're going to stick this right down there and then just fit it to the reference. So stick it right there. All right, hold down the Z button, go back to solid view, and that's looking good. But we need to delete the extra vertices that are right in here and kind of coming over. So I'm going to press Tab to go to edit mode. I'm going to hold down the Z button and go into the wireframe and let go. And then I just want to delete all the faces over here. So I'm going to press B for the box select. I'm just going to drag a box around all those faces. I can press X to delete, and we just want to delete the faces. All right, so I can press 1 on the numpad to go to front view, and I want to duplicate this and move it over, and then we can fill a face in between it. So I'm going to press A, and A will select everything, and then I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, and let's bring this over here, so bring it over on the X-axis. And then I want to mirror it, so I'm going to press S to scale. We can scale it on the X-axis, and then to flip it, I'm going to type -1 and enter. And then I can press G to grab, bring this over on the X-axis and stick it right there. Hold down the Z button and go back to the solid view, and I want to stick it right up against that. So press G to grab, bring it over on the X-axis and stick it right there. All right, that is looking good. Now I want to fill these two objects in the center, so I'm going to press Tab to go to object mode. I'm just going to select this object here and press H to hide it just to get it out of the way. So now you can see there's that open hole there. So I'm going to select this object and then press Tab to go to edit mode, and then you can click right here to go to the vertex select. So I can hold down the Alt key, select that loop, and then hold down the Shift and Alt key and select that loop as well. Now to fill the faces right here, I can press Control E, and then I just want to click on the bridge edge loops. And because both of those edge loops had the same amount of vertices, it could just fill all the faces, and that's looking good. And then just tap the A key to select everything, and I want to press Shift N to recalculate the normals, and that's looking better. Now if I press Tab to go back to object mode, you can see the normals are actually messed up on these bolts. So I'm going to Tab to go to edit mode, press the A key to deselect, and then just hover your mouse over these little objects and press the L key. So continue to press the L key with your mouse hovered over the object just to select all those. And then I can press Shift N, and you can see it's not actually recalculating. The normals aren't recalculating. So if I click on the recalculate normals right down here behind me, it's behind my face, the recalculate normals, I can click on inside, and that is going to manually flip it. So then I can just close this and make it smaller. And if I tab to go back to object mode, now I can click right here on this little arrow drop down, and I can go down here and click on the face orientation, and you can see it's all blue now. So the normals were flipped the wrong way, but we flipped them back to the correct position. Let's press Ctrl S to save, and I can press Alt H. Alt H is going to unhide those objects that we hid. So I now want to extrude down some little metal pieces, and the metal pieces are going to connect into the foot. So I'm just going to select this object, and I'm going to press tab to go to edit mode, and I'm going to navigate down here to the bottom. So I want to delete the extra faces that are in here that we don't need. So I'm going to click right here to go to the face select. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and select that loop of faces, and then hold down the Shift and Alt key and also select the same loop of faces on the other side. And then just hold down the Shift key, and we're going to select all of these faces here. And then I also want to hold down the Shift and Alt key, select that loop of faces, Shift and Alt and select that loop of faces. And then I want to hold down the Shift key and select these two faces on this side, and these two faces on this side, and the same thing on the other side. So hold down the Shift key, select these ones and these ones. So now what I want to do is extrude this down. So I'm going to press 3 on the numpad to go to side view, and you can see there's the reference. So I'm going to hold down the Z button and go into the wireframe. So I can press E to extrude. We're going to extrude that way down and just stick it inside the foot. And then I want to flatten this, so I'm going to press S to scale. Let's scale this on the Z axis, and I can type 0 and then enter just to flatten that. And then we also have faces in there that we don't need, so I'm going to press X to delete and just delete the faces. Alright, go back into solid view and you can see how that's looking. So now this is going to rotate, and that's basically going to be the ankle. So let's tab to go back to object mode. Alright, press Ctrl S again to save, and then the next thing we're going to be creating is the foot. So to create the foot, I am going to be making a different object. So I'm going to press Shift C. Shift C will center the 3D cursor, and I can press Shift A, and we're going to go to mesh, and I'm going to add a cube. And then again, I want the origin point to stay in the very center. So I'm going to press tab to go to edit mode, and then I can press G to grab, and I'm going to bring it out on the X axis, and I can scale it down. Now, just like all the other objects, I want to have the mirror and the bevel. So I'm going to tab to go back to object mode, make sure this is still selected, and hold down the Shift key and select the face. And I want to copy the modifiers from the face to this object. So I'm going to press Ctrl L, and then you can go right down here and click on copy modifiers. So now it has the same modifiers, and we can just shade the object smooth. So I'm now going to press 3 on the numpad for side view. I'm going to press G to grab. Let's bring this down on the Z axis and just stick it down there. And then I can also bring it over on the Y axis. So I'm now going to tab to go into edit mode, and I can hold down the Z button and go into wireframe. We can just model the feet. So these feet are going to be pretty easy to make. I can press S to scale that down, G to grab, and just kind of fit it to the reference. Just bring that down, stick it right there. And then I want to scale this, so let's hit S to scale. I'll scale it in on the Y axis, and I'm going to bring it in and bring it like that. And why I'm doing this is because this is going to be the inside of that joint, and so I do actually want to make this kind of curve down inside the foot. So I can now press 1 on the numpad to go to front view. I can press G to grab. Click with your mouse wheel, bring that over on the x-axis and place it in the center of the foot, and then I can scale this on the x-axis and just scale that up and just fit it to the reference. Alright, let's press 3 on the numpad for side view. I'm going to click right here to go to the vertex select, and then just deselect everything and press B for the box select, and I'm just going to box select those vertices. Then I can press E to extrude, and let's extrude that out and place it there, and then E to extrude again. We're going to extrude that out and stick it there, and then press A to deselect everything. Let's use the box select to just box select those vertices, and I can press G to grab and Z, and we're going to bring that down and just stick that there. And then we're going to do pretty much the same thing on the other side. So A to deselect, B for the box select. I'm just going to box select those vertices, and then I'm going to press E to extrude, and I want to extrude these out just that far and place it there because we do want to extrude out a little part there. So I'm going to press E to extrude again. We're going to bring this over and end it right there. And then E to extrude again. We're going to bring this over and stick it there. Then I can press A to deselect, B for the box select, just box select the vertices, G to grab. Let's bring this down on the Z axis and stick that there. And then hold down the Z button and go back into solid view. You can see what we've made. Now I want to add a loop cut right here going back and forth because I want to extrude out an area on the side here. So I'm going to press 3 on the numpad again for side view, go into wireframe by holding down the Z button, and I'm going to press Ctrl R to add a loop cut. I'm going to click and then drag up and place the loop cut right there where that top cube is. And then I can hold down the Z button, go back to solid view, and I want to go right here to the face select, and this way I can select this face, hold down the shift key and select this face. And then I can press 1 on the numpad for front view. And then I can press E to extrude, and then right after you press E, you can press S, and S is going to scale it. And I want to scale this on the X axis, so make sure you hit X to scale it on the X axis, so you're just scaling it back and forth. I want to scale these out all the way to here, so to the end there. You can hold down the Z button, go into the wireframe, and just scale that out on the X axis and put it there. Then I can press A to deselect everything. Let's click right here to go to the vertex select, and I can press B for the box select those vertices, and B again for the box select and select those vertices. And then to kind of add like a bevel to them, I can press G and Z, and we're going to bring that down and fit it to the reference. Hold down the Z button, go back into the solid view, and you can see that's what it's looking like. And then let's navigate to the back here, and I want to add some loop cuts right here in the center. So to do this, I'm going to press Ctrl R, and I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel out. And I'm just going to have 2 of them, so then I can left click and then right click so it stays in the center. So then what I can do is go right here to the face select, and I want to select this face, hold down the shift key, select these other faces right here on the back, and then I can press 3 for side view. And I want to extrude those out. So I can press E to extrude and just drop them right there. All right, navigate up here, and then I want to add some more details kind of on the back of the foot. So I'm going to select this face and then shift select these other faces, and then I can press the I key. That's going to inset the faces, and I'm going to scale them down a bit. And then I can also scale them on the Y axis to make them a bit less long. Then I can press E to extrude. I'm going to extrude that down, place it there. And then I can scale this on the Y axis, and we're going to make that a bit smaller, so that's kind of that beveled shape there. All right, and let's go to the front here and add some more details to the front. So I'm going to select this face, shift select this face, and then I can press I to inset those faces. We're just going to inset them down, and then I can press E to extrude, and we're going to extrude those faces down and place them there. All right, so there is 2 more things that I want to do to the foot. I want to add some bolts just kind of all around, these little bolts here, and then I also need to add that joint right there in the center. So what I'm going to do is press Ctrl R right here, and I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel out until there are 2 cuts, and I can just left click and then right click. And then I want to scale these, so hit S to scale. Let's scale them on the Y axis and just bring them back. And then what I can do is go here to the face select, just hold down the shift key, and we're going to select all of these faces in the center there. And I can press G and Z, and we're going to bring those down, and I'm just going to bring them down about that far. So now we have a little area here that we can add another cylinder. So let's press tab to go to object mode, and I'm just going to duplicate them from this object. So I'm going to select this object and press tab to go into edit mode. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just select that loop of faces there, and then hold down the Shift and Alt key, and we're going to select all these other faces here. So all these other rings of faces, and also this one here, and then also right over here, this one here. And then also hold down the Shift key and select this one right there. All right, so all of those are selected. So I'm now going to press Shift D to duplicate. Let's bring this out on the X-axis. And then to separate this, I can press P, and we want to separate by selection. I can tab to go to object mode. Let's select this object, hold down the Shift key, select this object, and then I can press Ctrl J, and that is going to join them together. I can tab into edit mode. Let's deselect everything with A, and then press L with your mouse hovered over that object. And then I can press 3 on the numpad for side view, hold down the Z button, and go into wireframe. So I can press G and Z, and we're going to bring that down, S to scale, and we can just scale that down and just make it fit the reference. So just like that. 1 on the numpad to go to front view, and G to grab, and let's bring this over and just make it fit the reference. And then what I'm going to do is go right here to the vertex select. I can hold down the Alt key and just select that loop of vertices there, and I can press E to extrude, and let's extrude this out, bring it out on the x-axis and stick it there. And then I'm going to press the F key, and the F key is going to fill that face. So now if I hold down the Z button, go to solid view, you can see that we just have that little piece right there on the side of the foot. So I can now press L with my mouse hovered over that piece. I'll press 1 for front view. I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate. Let's bring this over on the x-axis. And then to rotate this all the way around, I can press R to rotate. Let's rotate it on the Z-axis, and I can type in 180 to rotate it over by 180 degrees and hit enter. And then press G to grab. We're going to bring this over on the x-axis and just fit it to the reference. Alright, so I can now hold down the Alt key and select that loop of vertices. And I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate and just bring it over slightly so there's a tiny little gap there, because this is where the hinge is going to be for the rotation of the foot. I can now press E to extrude. We're going to extrude this all the way over and just stick it there. And again, just leave a tiny little gap. It shouldn't be very big, but there should be just a tiny little gap there. So that's looking really good. So we now have that little piece in the center there, and that's going to be the hinge, and it's going to rotate along these circles here. So there's just one more thing that I want to do to the foot object, and that is just to add some little bolts like I did with the other objects. So I'm going to press Tab to go back to object mode. Let's just select this object here and press Tab to go to edit mode. Press the A key to make sure everything is deselected, and I'm going to zoom in here. So then press the L key with your mouse hovered over the object. That's going to select the linked vertices, and I can press Shift D to duplicate, and I'm going to bring it down here. And then I want to separate this, so I'm going to press P. P will separate, and I'm going to click on selection. And then Tab to go to object mode. I can select the bolt object, hold down the Shift key and select the foot object, and then to join them together, you can press Ctrl J. We can tab into edit mode, and again, just hover your mouse over the bolt and press L to select the linked vertices. And then again, we can use the same snapping tool by clicking right here on the snapping, and then I can press G to grab, and we can just snap that to any of the faces. So then press Shift D to duplicate, bring it over, and just stick those little bolts there on the feet. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate. I want to bring this one over, stick one there, Shift D to duplicate, and let's stick another one right up there. And then Shift D to duplicate, we're going to put one there, and I want to have it be the same on the other side. So Shift D to duplicate, we'll stick it there. And then again, Shift D to duplicate, let's put this one there. Let's go back over to the other side, and then Shift D to duplicate again. We're going to stick another bolt there. And if you want to add any more bolts any other places, you can, but I'm going to call this good. Now there is just one more thing that I did remember, one more thing that I want to add. If I click right here to go to the face select, I just want to select this face, hold down the Shift key and select these other faces. And then I can press I to inset. Let's just inset those down. Bring them down, and then I can press E to extrude and just extrude them up. So just press the Tab key to go back to object mode. Let's press Ctrl S again to save, and we are now finished with all of the robot modeling. So thank you so much for watching the tutorial series so far, and I hope you've been enjoying it. So in the next part, in part 6, we are going to be doing the lighting, and then we're going to start adding some materials, and we're going to add the materials to the head. So if you want to watch the next part, I will have it right up there on the end screen when it's released, and also right down there in the video description. And also down there in the video description, I'll have a link to my Gumroad store and Patreon page and the YouTube memberships if you'd like to help support me and this channel. I do really appreciate everyone's support. It really does help me to keep on making Blender tutorials. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in part 6.